Lauren.
Yeah, Lauren joining us right now from the phone.
Hey, she's in there.
She's in there. Good morning, Katie.
Good morning.
Hey, let me ask you the most important question I'm going to ask you the whole interview. You ready?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Are you even peripherally during the
jump right into it?
Just, yeah. I'm asking you, like, even because you're locked in on the broadcast. Did you get wind of Kiss Cam yesterday?
I did. I saw it.
Right.
Yes, I did.
Okay.
My kids were not at the game.
I know, right? Jeez.
Yeah, I don't want to have to explain that one. Yeah.
Maybe somebody had a stiff crick in their neck.
Sure.
Right? I don't know.
Yeah.
All right. Second most.
I think someone had a little bit too much,
what?
Adult beverages.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, hey. Secondly, just before we get into the I almost said nuts and bolts. Let's not do that. I have given you crap before. In fact, I even remember very specifically it was a home opener, I want to say, against the Suns, and you wore orange, and I just did not let up on you. In fun, mostly. But then I had a couple of comments this morning in fun that were saying you were wearing red last night and, hey, don't wear red when the Rockets play. And I just kind of took that on a little bit of a tour of, like, for example, Mark or Kyle could get away with wearing like 3 different suits all year and maybe mix up the tie. No one's going to say a word.
And like a red tie when they play the Rockets. Yeah,
Jason,
no one's going to flip out.
Jason brought up, what was it, the anchor couple?
Yeah, there was a news anchor story where the female was either totally overpraised maybe for an outfit or ripped for an outfit. And so the anchor host was upset about that. So he's like, you know what? He wore the same suit for like 30 consecutive newscasts. And about the 30th one, finally someone said something.
Right.
And it's just, yeah.
So where we went with that was I said, look, in all seriousness, like we've been close a long time, no secret. I've seen your direct messages. I've seen your instant messages. I wish I hadn't at times. I know you're a pro and you just kind of go with the flow, but boy, are there different rules, aren't there? And I'm wondering, I've never asked you this before, during the course of an 82 game season, let's call it 90 with preseason and maybe a play-in, about how many outfits do you wear during the course of the year? If
82.
you had to guess. I'm sorry?
82.
You really?
Yeah, I don't wear the same thing twice.
Okay, hold on. We got to talk about the game last night, but I didn't know this. Wait, I haven't seen your I've seen your closet. It's not, and I know you have that rack in your garage that holds stuff, but what? So
I live in a different house now, Dave.
Right.
I have multiple closets, and so sorry to admit this for the rest of my family. I have clothes in Jade's closet. I have clothes in JoJo's closet. I have clothes in my office closet. I have clothes in the guest room closet. Like every closet is full of my work clothes.
Do you repeat outfits from like last year at least? Yeah,
no, I put it at a different spot. So I move it up to the front or I put a little that I've once already, and then I take them off and start all over at the next season. Yeah.
Wow. That's insane.
It's a lot of clothes.
Yeah,
That's a lot of
insane.
Is there like a clothes recycling program or something?
A clothes recycling?
I don't know.
So I don't know if you know this. Women's clothes aren't cheap, right? So this is something that I started working in 2006, and I've started building my wardrobe since 2006. That's 18 years of clothes that I've added to my work clothes. And I dress differently than a lot of women, maybe. I don't do a lot of trendy stuff. I do classic stuff. I do stuff that's going to last over time for a reason. And it'll be professional and so on and so forth and whatnot. But yeah, it's crazy because it's like last night, recently the Kings have worn red and blue a lot, the classic, the city edition, whatever they call them. And, I don't spend a whole lot of time thinking about what I'm going to wear. I just go and grab something out of the closet and hope that I can get it to zip, basically. and then, I go to work. I mean, I've spent too much time on shoot, like today was, free dress at the kids' school. And it's like, oh, you got to bring socks and toothpaste and toothbrushes and this for them to have free dress. It's Give Back Wednesday, right? And I have too much stuff to keep track of between being an adult and a mom and all of those things to really focus on, oh my gosh, what jersey are the Kings wearing today? And who are we playing again? So I'm sorry if it makes people mad when I wear a color that belongs to the other team.
Jason, she also does the same thing for our shows, like a different outfit. For
I know. We know
like
that.
Right now, probably. I'm guessing.
I'm wearing my bathrobe right now, so I get dressed up for you guys.
There you go. Kayte, last night, a lot to like. One, I mean, this team needed the win first and foremost, but they earned it. They really played well, executed well. But one of my favorite parts was Houston is the number 2 defensive team in the league. They come in with an edge. There's a chippiness to them. They have an attitude. And when the game got to that point, the Kings handled that, and I think flipped that right back on the Rockets. What did you see in that sense of a physical team that came in and the Kings really matched them, if not overmatched them in that?
Yeah, no, it was a key for me last night to the game is just kind of managing physicality, right? And there's 2 ways that you can look at it. Teams that are physical really like to try and get in your space. And Ime Udoka has the whole philosophy of Jerry Sloan, which they can't call everything, right? So they really have the luxury because of their identity and how they play that they can play ultra physical with teams. And that's how they've started out, and they've been really great. And that's how they've gotten to the place that they had. They're still in the 2nd seed in the Western Conference today because of their defense. And a lot of teams kind of buckle under it or they try to match it, but because they don't play that way, they end up fouling a lot. So I was really not surprised, but like really pleasantly surprised in terms of how the Kings not only managed the physicality, but got it to work in their favor, specifically when the technicals came up in the second quarter. And the physicality is on both ends of the floor. It's on screens. It's how they push you into your screens. It's how they screen, and you can't call it. You can't stop the game every possession. And so there was I think it was Jabari Smith Jr. who on a pick and roll, he kind of started backing into De'Aaron, and De'Aaron kind of was falling backwards and grabbed him around the waist. And that's when the whole thing started. And the best thing, and Mark said it on air, as the whole, De'Aaron doesn't back down to anybody. He just doesn't. And he also doesn't let them get him really riled up. He stays calm and collected, but that's when he switches his mentality. And it's almost like, to the point where it's like, oh my gosh, now he's going to go off. And he hadn't really done a lot offensively at that point. And he did. He finished the half with 15 points. And then he came out and got DeMar DeRozan going in the third quarter before he went back to his kind of, offensive game. But he completely switched mentality, and to the point where I'm like, God, I wish someone would just smack him around in the locker room and piss him off before he comes out on the floor, because I wish we could get that all the time. But it really backfired on Dylan Brooks, who is the initiator of all of this. And he ends up fouling out of the game and all of that stuff. And Ime gets ejected from the game. And I thought they handled it masterfully last night, kind of pitting their style against them.
Kayte Christensen joining us. You said during the broadcast, and this is something we talked about earlier in the show, I wanted to bring by you. You and Mark said in the broadcast, and this has been said many times before, hard foul on De'Aaron Fox, something happens, he gets popped, elbow in the mouth. Last night it was the kerfuffle, and it's the whole like, now you made De'Aaron mad, you don't want to see him mad. So I went on this thing about like what I don't want to say bothered me, Kayte, but like I love De'Aaron Fox. I played the clip of him and Bam Adebayo crying after Kentucky lost to UCLA. Like the whole De'Aaron doesn't care. He's just a chill dude. Of course he cares, and anyone who's around him knows he cares a ton. But, Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan, two of the greatest of all times, like they were just straight up psychos, and they manufactured ways, if they had to feel slighted. Yeah. I feel like if Draymond was on this team, say what you want, but he'd probably figure out a way to piss off De'Aaron Fox every game. And I found myself wondering aloud, Kayte, if we could somehow find a way to get De'Aaron Fox even 70 games out of the year, pissed off and at the level we see him when he's angry, I think he's already an all-star. He's already a future Hall of Famer, most likely, but he's a completely different level type of dude. You played with passion, you played with anger, this, that, whatever. Is that just not humanly possible for some people, or do you think that's a level he can somehow get to at some point?
Well, everybody's wired a little differently. So it's interesting that you bring up Kobe and Michael, because during a timeout, I turned to Mark last night and I said, it's kind of like, Jordan had this great ability to find something every game that could piss him off going into the game. So he had a chip on his shoulder. He sought out something to make him mad, whether it was something that was said in the media, so on and so forth. But everyone's wired differently, right? Like De'Aaron is a guy that he's very even keeled, goes about his business, and he can have a 60-point night without getting pissed, if you catch my drift. But when he does, it like elevates him on both ends of the floor. He had that great steal from Fred VanVleet that led to a basket in transition. I think that De'Aaron plays kind of in a way like you don't need to piss him off for him to have motivation. It's just that when he is, it's just you recognize it in a little bit different way. So I don't know. It's an interesting question, but I don't necessarily think that everyone has to have that to be motivated to play at a high level.
Kayte, the second straight game we've seen Coach Brown go to Malik Monk as a starter. The first time they had 42 points in the first quarter. Yesterday, 42 in the third, had a stretch of 15 made shots in a row from the second to the third. And then just Malik as a playmaker, 12 assists without a turnover. What can, if that minute total stays up and he stays in that starting lineup, what can that mean for that group and really this team going forward with the way Malik's playing?
Well, so the interesting thing about it is Domantas Sabonis has been turning the ball over at a higher rate this year. And always his turnovers are what people would look at on a stat sheet or, the season averages and say that they're elevated, right? But that's by comparison. I mean, he has the ball in his hands making decisions every single play. And so I think that those numbers, when you look at them just, in that way, like, oh, he's averaging, 3.5 turnovers. Yeah, but he has the ball in his hand every single offensive possession. Not many offensive players do, and they're in decision-making roles, right? But they've been a little bit elevated this year, and I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that now with DeMar DeRozan on the roster, there's three guys that you can't double team all of them. So they've seen a lot of single coverage. And to me, where he's turning the ball over at a higher rate this year is when he goes into isolation and he's trying to back people down and he's just over dribbling the ball. You've got to make quicker decisions, quicker moves, more precise. Maybe sometimes that's giving up the ball and just getting a deeper steal and receiving it back so that you're not, because once he starts putting it on the floor, they really try to crowd the paint. But with Malik in the starting lineup, it takes the ball out of Domas's hands a little bit and a little bit of the responsibility off of him in terms of being kind of one of the sole playmakers in that lineup. And they get to go to more of a traditional pick and roll game versus a DHO game. And they've struggled with their DHO game a little bit this season, I think, because now in year 3, teams are scheming for it a little bit better on how to blow that up. And that's also, I think, one of the things that have been impacting their 3-point shooting as well. So I like Malik with that group because he is a fantastic playmaker. And you get to see, now you really have 3 guys in both De'Aaron, Malik, and Domas that can facilitate offense. And you're getting a sprinkle of different things, like a taste of different things offensively. And it's not just the DHO game, 5-6 possessions in a row. And so it keeps the defense on their heels as well. But I mean, it's interesting. I think that he will, first of all, how do you put the genie back in the bottle, right? He's wanted to start for, very vocally for his time here in Sacramento, but he's very happily also accepted the role of 6th man and he closes games. And so starting or not, he's still playing the same amount of minutes, all of that. We've talked about that. But so now the question is going to be, does he remain in the starting lineup basically going forward? Does Kevin Huerter come off the bench? Does Keon Ellis come off the bench? Is that how this is going to look? And then it's just about managing the rotations so that you can get De'Aaron the rest and the other perimeter players, but still have, a couple of the key guys out on the floor at the same time. So they've got some things to play around with there. But I kind of mentioned it last night during the fourth quarter. You had them out on the floor at the start, and it's like, okay, they've got to get some rest here. They can't play the whole 12 minutes. And then De'Aaron comes out. It's like, okay, they're going to let him rest for a minute. Then Keegan's going to go. And like, they did a nice job with the rotation, I felt. And actually, I felt like De'Aaron got a minute or longer of rest than I anticipated in the fourth quarter because of Malik's ability to really be out there and be impactful on both ends of the floor. So I like it. I still think they have stuff that they're going to figure out rotation-wise. And they played a really short bench. They played 8 guys last night until the game was, conceded at that point and the other subs came in. But I heard you guys talk about it earlier this morning about 7 guys in double figures. And I said it during the broadcast. Every single player before that second group came in at the end and played out the last couple minutes, every single player that touched the floor and took a shot scored in double figures. Jay Crowder didn't take a shot last night.
Yeah.
And so when you look at that offense and how well it worked in that shorter rotation, that was great. I mean, they were very productive. They were productive on the defensive end. But the question is going to be I think Isaac Jones is playing phenomenally. And to get to see him and the amount of trust that they all have in him. I mean, this is a guy that was not playing. I mean, he's kind of third string, if you will. And they're going to him offensively on the low block. They're thrown ahead to him in transition. I mean, they're trusting him in situations. And I think it's fantastic that he's responding the way that he is. But it's like, okay, they're going to have more issues. When Trey Lyles comes back, what happens? So I still think there's a lot of unanswered questions, but they don't have to have the answers right now. They can deal with that later.
Yeah. I want to go back to what you said about Malik Monk, and I'm not picking on you because I don't think you were necessarily advocating for it, but it's a conversation that Jason and I were having earlier with the whole Malik Monk starting thing. And one of the most, if not the most common refrain when he was coming off the bench was what you just said. Hey, start, come off the bench. He's getting 30, 35, 36 minutes. He's there at the end. So really, ultimately, blah, blah, blah. And the problem I have with that, though, Katie, is, well, then why not have Fox come off the bench? Why not have Sabonis come off the bench? If they're going to still get 30, there's a reason why guys start. And without getting into the minutia of second units, et cetera, why not start your 5 best players as a general rule, especially when you have a gaping hole at the 2? And if Kevin Huerter or Keon Ellis or whoever is going to struggle in the second unit, which is also the other reasoning I've heard, well, why reward them with starting? Why not just start your best 5?
I mean, it's a good question. And I know it's one that people kind of, there's 2 sides of the fence that you fall on this. And to me, I'm not in every practice. I'm not the one managing the game plan. I'm not the one managing rotations and all of those things. So those are things that factor into it that are, quite frankly, above my pay grade. Thankfully, I don't have to make those decisions. I see what you're saying, but first of all, Malik, and let's not get it twisted, is not De'Aaron or DeMontis. Okay. No. So we'll be clear on that. He is a phenomenal player. He's great in his role, and he can be a starter in this league. He was when he was in LA. He has elevated himself to that level. But the thing is it is about that little tweak of managing rotations. And when you have your 5 best players on the floor to start the game and at all times, right, when you look at it that way. So how do you manage when they need a rest? What's the drop off there? You have to.
You talking about how do you manage the bench coming in and when the starters need a rest? Well, I mean, hell, they're playing the starters 40 minutes a game.
Players out. you have your 5 best players out there. So should we just sub all 5 guys out at the same time? Like, it's an art to managing rotations. Like when certain people come out, when you get the other, trying to always have 2 of the main guys out on the floor at all times, not having long stretches of minutes. Maybe there's 1 or 2 minutes in the game where you don't have at least 1 or 2 of the starters out there. But it's about managing rotations and minutes and rest. And also it's based on your opponent as well, as like who do they have on the floor at the time? What are the best matchups? And Kevin Huerter shot the ball incredibly well his first season here in Sacramento. He had a drop off last season, which I kind of feel bad about because he still shot like 36% from 3, you guys. Mm-hmm. But because it wasn't 40%, it's, he shouldn't be in the starting lineup. Well, you want to, also manage personalities. Like, because he was struggling and as a shooter, so we're going to take him out of the starting lineup. What does that do to him from a mental perspective? There's so many different things that you have to manage. And Malik is one of those guys. They're a rarity in the league where nothing is going to mentally affect him. Nothing is going to get in his head. And he's going to come out there and he's going to play the same way, regardless of he's coming off the bench or if he's a starter. Like, he is a luxury as a player in terms of personality to have on your roster. And so that's all of those are, and that's not all of them, but it's many of the primary things that as a coach, you're trying to manage all of these things in terms of how you're making the decisions. But I love what Mike Brown said prior to the game last night, because it is going to be a big topic of discussion is he going to stay in the starting lineup? We've seen more starting lineups in the first 20 games of this season than we've seen combined in the last 2 seasons. There's been a lot of changes, but it's circumstantial based on injuries, and it's based on the fact that this team is not performing and not performing the way that they want to in terms of coming out with wins. And so Mike said, listen, like, I don't know any coach that when things are kind of not going the way you want them, that isn't going to try multiple different things. And that includes your rotations, your starting lineups, your game plan, like all facets of the game and how you manage it. And so he's like, we're going to stick with this for a while. So at least he's flexible. At least he's not, just like, well, this is how I. And so, it may not be working right now, but it will again eventually. No, he's making changes. He's switching things up. He's trying new things. And they've looked good in the last 2 games in my mind.
So no chance maybe next game in Memphis, as De'Aaron's walking out on the floor, you do me a favor and just look down and be like, those shoes are stupid or something, something like that. Just piss him off.
Okay. Yeah, I'll definitely give that some real thought.
I'm sure you will. Fly safely, have a good trip, and we'll see. Hey, Puffy Taco, San Antonio. You do it this time?
Second night of a back-to-back. First of all, I've had them before.
All right.
I'm not as crazy about them as you are.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
We'll just see if I can get from Memphis to San Antonio.
All right. All right. Have a great trip.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye. Sorry. I thought she was done. It's Kayte Christensen. Full of energy this morning.
Mm-hmm.
She was laying it on a lot of different things. Much like American Energy will lay things out with you when it's time to get your inspections done. Oh, man.